Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this brief ag forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. I'm going to start you off with a satellite image from Sunday afternoon showing you that deep low pressure system that was off the northwest coast. Pressure dropped off here all the way down to 942 millibars. We had just a stream of moisture coming from Hawaii slamming into California. Now, this system has since pushed into British Columbia and it has faded, but on its way, it delivered a lot of moisture. You may have heard it referred to as a bomb cyclone. I'm going to let you know that's actually a meteorological term. Dr. Fred Sanders, famous synoptic dynamicist that studies the flow of the atmosphere, back in October 1980 coined the term bomb cyclone. And what he said was that a bomb cyclone is any time we measure in a low pressure system a change in pressure that is equivalent to 1 millibar drop in pressure per hour for 24 hours. So it's rapidly intensifying. And he was studying this because of its impact on, for example, supply chain, moving goods across the oceans, especially because of the winds and waves that these things produce when they rapidly intensified. Well, what we got out of this was a major change to this graphic, but it hasn't changed yet. You see Lake Shasta and Lake Oroville were sitting at 22 and 25% full pool before this came through. And take a look at what it looks like here. This is Lake Oroville's water level, and I'll take you back to late spring, April 27th, where we kind of reached a peak in Lake Oroville, about 729 feet that's the water level. Now, that was way below the 2020 and 2019 numbers, but like normal, we lose about 100 feet of water level between April and October. Now, at the end of October, this one event has brought the lake level back up 20 feet right in through here. But still, the state is in exceptional drought, although I expect to see some changes in that because this is what we saw in terms of total precipitation over the last 72 hours. Some places in Northern California saw in excess of 12 inches of rainfall. We're putting snow in the Sierra Nevada now, and this is moving across the Great Basin and the Northwest as we speak. Now, in a place like Sacramento, the last time they measured rain there before this event was 216 days earlier, and bringing in this much precipitation more than doubled their totals so far in the year. Now, a place that would love to not see any more precipitation for a while is right in through here. This is an area that this low pressure system starting on Friday, moving through on Saturday and Sunday, brought in a lot of very heavy rainfall, including some severe weather and tornadoes, Missouri, parts of Illinois, strong straight line wind damage as well. But large swaths of very heavy rainfall getting into Indiana too. And this is going to keep us out of our fields because we have another system following this that's going to bring in more wet weather. Now, before I get into that though, I want to talk about this pattern because up until Sunday morning, this is what our precipitation ranks by climate district look like. It's been wet throughout much of the Corn Belt in October. Very wet in the western Corn Belt and the High Plains. Drier pockets in the Mid-Atlantic. Florida, Southern California. But overall, you do tend to see in this map more places with above average precipitation than less. Columbia Basin has been drier, and the rain shadow has been in strong effect in parts of Montana. So just get this idea down in your head because the same pattern that gave us that strong southwest flow at times that produced all this wet weather here is also what ran up over a ridge in the Hudson Bay and gave us much of the Great Lakes states into the Ohio Valley and Northeast a very, very warm first 3 weeks of October. Many locations here having either their warmest on record or at least a top 5. While that's been going on, again, it's that southwest flow dipping like this. We've been wet and cool in the west. Now, to an atmospheric scientist, we look at it in the trough ridge pattern, and that trough has been here, and the big immovable ridge has been there, and there's been 2 other features, a ridge here and a trough there that's flanked. That's our wave train pattern. We talked about this last week. But we're going to ask some questions about this, whether or not it is going to move. And to answer that, I'm going to go straight to the 12Z GFS ensemble, very similar to the European. What we're going to see over the next 7 to 10 days is that the trough we've been seeing into the Gulf of Alaska cutting into British Columbia is now going to take residence up here. We're going to see a ridge building into the west. A trough then, almost like a reflection of the pattern to the west of it, starts to develop here from the Hudson Bay down into the southeast. And our ridge, which had been just anchored over the Hudson Bay, starts to move as well. This whole pattern is actually going to become quite active in terms of moving around, but this is what I want you to get. You see, the flow, instead of coming out of the southwest around those troughs, which we're setting up here, is now doing this. And that's convergent. And therefore, there's subsidence higher pressure. Yes, it's going to be cold, but it is also going to represent a shift in the precipitation pattern. Let's talk about that cold first, because you go out there into day 10 through 15, and now you really start to see the European model honing in on this. So did the GFS. So a place that's avoided the cold weather throughout October, finally getting that pattern change, which I'll be honest, I've had a difficult time calling when it was going to happen. And again, I'll keep blaming my difficulties on one thing that I misread, and that was the MJO. Remember, it spent so much time here in early October, phase 5-6. It then didn't come across like this, but skipped and emerged over here in phase 1-2. That would be the opposite of phase 5-6. About a 10-day lag on this, and we start to see the reflection of that change in the pattern. And what I wait on these afternoons is the new European weeklies to come in to give us some more guidance. And they finally come into alignment with what we've been talking about. I've been saying we've had too much of a warm bias, and the models are now showing that. You do notice that the eastern half of the country here now starting to show near normal to cooler than normal throughout the month of November. Same thing, honestly, with the west. I wouldn't go too warm on the west at this point either. But why is the Canadian prairie showing up as warm? Well, like we talked about last week, a lack of snow cover and a lack of a big just storehouse of cold air under a big dome of high pressure. We didn't build that in October. So we're going to watch that. But you also remember me showing you last week what the CFS V2 was saying? Well, look at how it just completely flipped on the pattern too. Now for the second week of November, it's gone over cold here. So all of the models have adjusted. So there's the second week of November, and getting into the third here, we can really see that pattern change. I still think it's biased a bit too warm for the west as we look forward. Okay, right now we got that long range out of the way, this is what we're dealing with. As the sun was setting this afternoon, we can see we were watching some bigger storms pop up just after they went over the Appalachian Mountains. We're going to keep an eye in this area for some severe weather. Then the system that's coming over the west, you can still see the moisture stream here. It's going to emerge tomorrow in the central plains. We're going to watch for some severe weather. And unfortunately, that's going to soak parts of the mid-south up into the Midwest as we get later in the week. But severe weather first. We are keeping an eye out on the risk later this evening on Monday night for some strong to severe storms into parts of North Carolina and Virginia. That severe weather threat then moves tomorrow on Tuesday. So if you're watching this on Tuesday, it's going to be today, right in through this area, cutting through the Red River Valley all the way up to Kansas and Nebraska. On Wednesday, the threat is going to be down here along the Gulf Coast. I'm going to show you that by going over to the high-res 18Z NAM. So as we play through tonight on Monday night, again, we're going to watch the stronger storms here. You will also notice there's a coastal low developing here. The latest forecast guidance keeps it farther offshore, but as it moves up there, those two low pressure systems combine, soaking tonight and into tomorrow morning much of the northeast. Now, as that happens, okay, and that spins there, it's going to give us an inclement bit of weather in the northeast through Tuesday afternoon and evening. But another low begins to merge in the high plains. And as it does so on Tuesday evening, we're going to be watching out for probably initially some supercell development here that will come into a line as we get into the late evening and overnight hours on Tuesday. And that line could stretch through this whole area, and that's why we have that enhanced risk in this region. Now the problem is that there's just one big elongated pressure trough here. We don't see this curling up into a low until Wednesday evening, right over about Springfield to Joplin, Missouri. Okay? And as it does that, we're going to get some stronger winds with this, but that's going to slow it down, keeping rains spread from Missouri into Iowa, and those will eventually spread into Illinois, where it's been very, very wet as of late. Another wave pushes into the Pacific Northwest, so we're going to be seeing more precipitation in Washington at this time as well. Again, this is Wednesday night to Thursday morning. Just want to keep you aware of the stronger winds we expect to see through Thursday morning. So start from east to west. That coastal low really bring in wind speeds 50 to 75 miles an hour here. We can see the stronger winds that will be coming behind that system emerging middle of this week in the plains. So we're expecting gusts here of possibly over 40 miles an hour. And again, we can still see the stronger winds in the Great Basin and in this part of Montana in that rain shadow area. So I want to keep you aware of what those winds are going to be doing through midweek this week as well. Now, let's jump over to a multi-model analysis, GFS on the left, European on the right. We've seen through Tuesday into Wednesday, and why don't we stop it here on Thursday morning where we left off with the other models. Both the GFS and the European agreed. Let's keep that system slowly moving through the Ohio River Valley through Friday. So a lot of wet weather in this area Thursday into Friday. See it in both models. And as that progresses forward, it then slides on up to the northeast, giving us a wet weekend, which unfortunately is a Halloween weekend. And it's going to be a wet one there through Sunday morning. But as we get out to, let's just stop it here at trick-or-treating time, this is not bad, right? We don't see any major systems coming through the United States, but I'm sure those of you that are living in the high plains are looking at this right here, and I'm going to talk about that. That's Sunday night into Monday morning. We do see that there's enough cold air coming in on this side of this high pressure system that we're going to be squeezing the air into an elongated front right in this area, and the potential for some snow does exist there. Now, the European model wants to take that snow and push it a bit farther to the south with more cold air. Look at where we get by the time we see Tuesday evening into Wednesday morning. Now, I know we're way out there in a single model run, and we got to be careful when we do this. But both models, the GFS and the European, put a big high pressure cell here, which means that colder air coming through is the real deal. How much snow we get in here, we can't yet assess how much that's going to be, but I'm going to at least show you the maps in a few moments. First, I would like to give you total precip, okay? So remember, first system coming through the mid-Atlantic tonight on Monday. Coastal low running up like this Tuesday into Wednesday. We then have on Tuesday the severe storms risk in here, the low that builds into the mid-south over Missouri, spreading rain north and south and eventually into the Ohio River Valley. Most of this is coming in the next 24 hours, but we do have a shot coming in here midweek this week in and around the Puget Sound. That's what you got, okay? To compare this to the GFS, there's the GFS. So European, GFS. Both models, as you saw, look pretty good. Overall, though, the European is wetter, especially in the mid-south through the Midwest. I can certainly see wetter conditions there coming out of the European. Go ahead and pause it and have a closer look at this if you'd like to see those model differences. But I'm going to get past this and start talking about that snow. Because from Sunday into Monday, the operational European's trying to spread snow in this part of the high plains, getting into Nebraska, Wyoming, and Colorado, possibly Kansas as well. So we're going to watch this. Don't look at this and take it verbatim. We're going to have to keep an eye on this throughout this week to see how things continue to shift here. What about the week 2 pattern? Well, stretching it out to 10 days, our probability of getting another inch of rainfall, high in through here and very high into the northeast. So very wet conditions across those areas. That pattern for week 2, though, remember, trough dives down. So you can see that once we get past the system that's coming here throughout this week, next week the convergence in the trough leads us to a drier pattern overall. Okay, let's finish up with temperatures and a quick look at the very long range, and that'll be it for this brief forecast. Monday's high temperatures getting into Tuesday. Very warm in the southern plains, but cold in the west. By middle of this week, much of the United States is seasonal in terms of temperatures with a cooler bias. But into Thursday and Friday, this is what we've got. A lot of cooler air here as the trough develops. The ridge behind it bringing in some warmth, but don't get too used to it because on Saturday, we got a front sliding through, and that may push some snow up against this part of the Rockies here in Montana. And there's Sunday's high temperatures. Day 5 through 10 tells the story, though. That's when the cooler air comes in with that high pressure. And you can see the cooler conditions here compared to the surrounding area. It's because the model put down snow. And that gives us kind of a cold bias because of the presence of that snow. Day 10 through 15, I showed you the European first, but I want to let you know the GFS echoes that cooler pattern here while the ridge redevelops. So that's our pattern going out here through the first week of the month of November. All right. One last thing to talk about is La Nina. A year ago, this is what it looked like. This year, it's got this, a cold extension here and very cold water in the Gulf of Alaska. Now, that's because of all those troughs that have been there. But that Southern Oscillation Index still appear around a value of 12 tells me that this La Nina is going to continue to develop over the coming weeks and probably months. And what I'm going to tell you to be on the lookout for is a shift where this starts to warm up. Because if that occurs, we could get ourselves back into this kind of a wave pattern. For the midsection of North America, if November to December is going to go over very cold, I just want to tell you what you're going to have to look out for. Big ridging over Alaska, where we've not seen that, and a deep trough developing between the Hudson Bay and the Great Lakes. That would be the pattern to be on the lookout for should we go over very cold throughout November into December in the midsection of the United States. You can see what that would do on both coasts as well. So I'll be watching for that shift. I'll keep you up to date, all right? Talk to you again on Thursday. Thanks.